Do you guys like reading books? Me, I really like reading books. It's one of my favorite hobbies. And but what I should do more is read more technical books, especially when it comes to software engineering. I've read at least one, which was recently I read. I forget the name of it, but it's like one of the very famous books. It introduces how the computer was built, and like going from very scratch, what it's made out of, all the switches, all the logics, and what it means to store data and things like that. And that's been very helpful, I find. That's been very helpful. Although it's not something that I apply every day. I don't build computers from scratch. But at the same time, it's very helpful to understand what's going on behind the scenes, and it makes me feel more confident. But at the same time, I think I could have got more out of that book. And that's why this article here is interesting. Recommendations for getting the most out of a technical book. And I think this can help a lot of people, because I know a lot of people still likes to learn from books. So it's an article written by Sebastian Rashka on sebastianrashka.com. As always, the link is in the description. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Pascal. I have a background in mathematics. I did a PhD in mathematics and I worked as data scientist, and now I'm doing a master's in software engineering. And I'm really interested in learning everything about software engineering and developer, this whole world. It interests me a lot. So if you have the same interest as me, and we share the articles every day about software engineering and productivity in general. If that interests you, make sure to like and subscribe. And here's the article. Below are a few notes I previously shared when readers ask how to get the most out of my building large language model from scratch books. I follow a similar approach when I read technical books myself. It's not meant as a universal recipe, but it may be a helpful starting point. For this particular book, I strongly suggest reading it in order since each chapter depends on the previous one. And for each chapter, I recommend the following steps. So this is particularly about his book, but he says it applies to everyone. Okay. First, read offline. I recommend reading the chapter from start to finish without any coding yet. The goal of this first read through is to get the big picture first. Ideally, I recommend reading the chapter away from the computer. A physical copy works well, but a digital device without distractions, no browser, social media, or media works too. How many of you read books in ebook? I do have an ebook reader, Kobo, but I definitely gravitate much more towards physical books. Personally, I read both on paper and on e-ink tablet. While I have used e-ink tablets since 2018 and I always try to read more on e-ink, I still notice that physical copies help me focus better. Yeah, I'm the same. That is also why I sometimes print research papers that are challenging or that I really want to understand it in detail. I think something about being able to feel the paper and turn the pages, there's something about that makes me focus and process information a lot better, I think. My recommendation is to make the first read through a short, focused 20-minute reading session with minimal distractions and without overthinking it or getting stuck with details. Highlighting or annotating confusing or interesting parts is fine, but I would not look things up at this stage. I just suggest reading but not running any code yet. This first pass is meant to understand the bigger picture. Number 2, second read with code. On the second read through, I recommend typing up and running the code from the chapter. Copying code is tempting because retyping is a lot of work, but when I read other technical books, it usually helps me to think about the code a bit more versus just glancing over it. If I get different results than in the book, I would check the book's GitHub repo and try the code from there. If I still get different results, I will try to see if it's due to different package versions, random seeds, CPU, CUDA, etc. If I then still can't figure it out, asking the author would not be a bad idea via the book forum, public GitHub repo issues, or discussions. And as a last resort, email. I think it's already a difference here that I don't do. I only read through once and then that's usually it. Second read, yeah, it takes a lot of motivation though. Number 3, exercises. After the second read through, retyping and running the code is usually a good time to try the exercises. It's great for solidifying one's understanding of or tinkering with a problem in a semi-structured way. If the exercise is too challenging, it's okay to look at the solution. However, I would still recommend giving it a solid try first. Number 4, review notes and explore further. Now, after reading the chapter, running the code, and doing the exercises, I recommend going back to the highlights and annotations from the previous 2 read-throughs and seeing if there is still something unclear. This is also a good time to look up additional references or do a quick search to clarify anything that still feels unresolved. But even if everything makes sense, reading more about a topic of interest is not a bad idea. At this stage, it also makes sense to write down or transfer useful insights, code snippets, etc. to your favorite note-taking app. I agree with reading something even if you think it all makes sense several times, because like in the movies or in books, whether it be academic or non-academic, I always find that when I read several times, I usually find something new. And to the point where sometimes I'm like, whoa, has that always been there? Because I'm sure this is completely new. Even though when you read it at first, you feel like, yeah, I got everything. So I think this is really good practice. And even if you use something, just that repetition of it just solidifies the understanding and it really plants it in your brain. So yeah, I think that's something really cool to do. 5, use the ideas in a project. The previous steps were all about soaking up knowledge. Now see if you can use certain aspects of a chapter in your own project. Or maybe build a small project using the code from the book as a starting point. For inspiration, check out the bonus materials, which are basically mini projects I did to satisfy my own curiosity. For example, after reading about the multi-head attention mechanisms and implementing the LLM, you may wonder how well a model with grouped query attention performs, or how much a difference RMS norm versus layer norm really makes, and so forth. There could also be smaller aspects that could be useful in your own projects. For example, sometimes it is a tiny detail that ends up being useful, like testing whether explicitly calling torch.map and ps.manual seed changes everything compared to using torch.manual seed alone. Additional thoughts. Of course, none of the above is set in stone. If the topic is overall very familiar or easy, and I'm primarily reading the book to get some information in later chapters, skimming a chapter is okay, to not waste my time. Also, for chapters that don't have any code, for example, the introductory chapter 1, it makes of course sense to skip the code related steps. Anyway, I hope this is useful and happy reading and learning. I think overall advice is really good. And like the author says, the only thing is time, because of course reading something several times takes time. But if it's something that you want to really deep dive into, so for example, maybe in a few months you'll be working in an internship that primarily works on large language models, I think in that case it's worth it. It's worth it. But if you're just trying to get a feel for something, maybe reading through it once should be enough, just to know that next time you feel like you want to deep dive into something, you know that it's there, where to look for it. But yeah, this has been really cool. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe. Bye.